Now we're recording. What's up, Stitt-Heads? Welcome back. Cracking my Colt 45. Already had my two zigzags this morning, and we're having some fun today. I mean, there's all kinds of craziness going on in the world, and wanted to bring back a returning guest, Tony Arterburn. And what we were originally going to talk about is money and currency and what the hell's happening to our dollar. But now we've also got some current events recently that might explain a little bit of where currency could possibly go to. But dude, welcome back to the show. How you doing today, Tony?
It's great to be back. Well, I mean, under the circumstance, I'm alive. There's still an opportunity to see tomorrow, but the powers that be are certainly making those odds that something bad happens or there's some sort of, shortage or economic downturn or cataclysm or apocalypse. They're doing their best to push us over the edge. It looks like, and it's really unfortunate. So many unintended consequences, or maybe they are intended, can come out of this unnecessary, unconstitutional war that we're just escalating. We're the one initiating it. It's us doing it, which isn't really anything new now in the modern era for the United States foreign policy. But this is something I think another level that we've reached, where the American people clearly don't want this. I mean, it's a lot of it's met by apathy. Like, I guess we're not in control, but the Fox News crowd, neocon, standard military industrial complex person wants this. But how many people is that? I mean, what percentage level is that? I think I said something today on America Unplugged. I think liver cancer has a higher approval rating in the United States than whatever we're doing in our foreign policy. And just absolutely saddening and ridiculous and infuriating all at once. I think we just discussed off air, and by the time this hits, I mean, it will probably be a little bit aged on news, but they seem to have assassinated the Ayatollah in the
Yeah.
strike. Um, that's not good. And, regardless of what you think about the mullahs and Iran's theocracy, which, by the way, we created. If you look at Operation
100%.
Ajax in the early 1950s with the overthrow of Mossadegh, that was a CIA op to
Yeah.
install the Shah of Iran. Yes, why do we do that? Well, we had just recognized a few years earlier the state of Israel that created tension with that region and drove Iran into the arms of the Soviet Union because of the proximity and geography. We wanted to wrest that away. We put our guy in. They were fascistic and totalitarian, and the undercurrents created modern. Well, it was one of the underpinnings of modern radical Islam. In 1979, they took the U.S. embassy hostage. The overthrow of the Shah regime, and you had 444 days of Americans being held hostage, and that really was the kickoff year for what we understand now as modern radical Islam. And yeah, I certainly don't excuse that, but if you look at direct cause and effect, this is the definition of blowback. When you do something like this, it has unintended consequences. So I think there's so many things, like, if you're really thinking this through, it's not going to be, oh, the Iranians overthrow their government, and then there's like Thomas Jefferson, the Iranian Thomas Jefferson arrives. It'll
Yeah.
look a lot like Iraq did, with less infrastructure. And maybe, and look, I hope I'm wrong, because these are human beings, and Iran's never attacked me.
Yeah.
I don't have who's not in the Epstein files, any of the Iranians. So,
No
to my
shit, dude.
to
That's
my
crazy.
knowledge, Iran hasn't robbed me of my ability to save and earn, and Iran didn't send me off to war, and when I was young, and put me in an unconstitutional war. I mean, I did that to myself, but the powers that be uh, orchestrated all of this. It's just terrible policy. Uh,
Hmm.
so no, I'm really worried at it. I think that Churchill said something about the terrible ifs, and I always wondered, that's a great phrase, turn of phrase, like the terrible ifs, like what ifs. And now that
Hmm.
I see that headline of the Khomeini, I just say, oh, well, you don't. We're fishing for something here, and we launched this without a false flag. We just did it. Just
Yeah, no
just
shit.
we didn't even try to buffer or appease the American people with something. We just went into it. So there's something dangerous here, and of course you got to go back to the Israelis. Israel has, this is their war, and we're just doing it for them. So
We're the
just
Goyim.
yeah, know your place.
Right. Well, there's so many good points in there you brought up. And so with all these neocon Republican, whether friends and family and whatever, I'm trying not to argue with people. I just post and ghost. I'll stir the pot, and then I'm like, you guys can eat each other alive in the comment section. But the thing is, everybody keeps referencing, oh, well, they always say death to America. And then also, oh, 1979. You're like, yes. Well, also 2 points, death to America. You know how many other countries say that? You know how many liberals say that here in this country? So does that justify us going and killing liberals? And then two, the idea of the 79 shit, we caused all of that lead up too. So everybody acts like, just like October 7th or 9/11 or all these other events that are big events, they act like they just happened and there was nothing that led up to it, like Russia and Ukraine. Oh, no expansion of NATO eastward. Meanwhile, hey, knock knock, we're going to be right on your backyard now, Russia. So it's like people get the news as it comes out, and then they don't know everything that led up to it. Is kind of what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, okay, Reagan called the Soviet Union an evil empire one time. It was one time he
Mm-hmm.
said that, but he called the Soviet Union an evil empire. Khrushchev, who was the head of the Soviet Union with the height of the Cold War and Cold War tensions, went to the UN building in New York, took off his shoe and beat the podium and said, "We will bury you." You know, there's all kinds of rhetoric. It doesn't mean you sacrifice your sons and daughters and your blood and treasure for rhetoric, or I don't really care that the people in Iran take to the streets and burn American flags. I mean, the politicians here in my country do worse to me every day. Uh,
Bingo.
the calls are coming from inside the house. I mean, this is a distraction. It's immoral. So
Mhm.
regardless of what someone thinks of my country, I'm talking about, what do you do? Like, how does Iran threaten the sovereignty or existence of the United States of America? I mean, when are we supposed to fight a war? And what constitutes a just war? I think, like, obviously I'm not a pacifist. I believe I'm probably more hardcore as far as defense than the actual people who want to blow everything up, because I don't want to
Mhm.
expend stuff. I want to train. I want to have resources. I want to make sure that we don't exhaust ourselves, that we're not overstretched, that we can respond to something if there is a threat. But right now, I don't see any threats even close to the political structure in this country. I don't, the ability to take our rights away, to surveil us unconstitutionally or illegally, to imprison us indefinitely, to take away our speech. Iran can't do that. Iran can't destroy or defeat the United States. Only we can do that to ourselves. So the argument that you get from the people is a knee jerk Fox News reaction,
Mhm.
and I find it to be intellectually bankrupt and void of 5 minutes of thought.
Yeah.
Just give it 2 minutes. Like, really just think about it for 2 minutes. How is this really going? What's the end game here? What are we doing? What are we promoting? What do we look like? You know, uh,
Mhm.
Reagan called us a shining city on a hill as an example. John Quincy Adams said something really poignant, and he said, "America's not designed to go abroad in search of monsters to destroy. We're supposed to
Mhm.
be a well wisher and an example. We should be an example. This isn't setting a good example. We haven't set a good example in a long time, but
Long
that's the
time.
whole point, right? Is to be an example. And our ancestors gave us a gift. I mean, they slogged through the two bankers' wars of the 20th century, World War One and World War Two, and we created nuclear weapons for good or ill. Those are something we created, and that had a stasis. So the type of wars that we used to have aren't really possible. There's something worse if you actually exchange nukes, but we created a situation where we could have a long lasting peace, and especially with the fall of the Soviet Union. And we botched that deal every which way we could. We had a peace
Mhm.
dividend for decades, maybe centuries, and we blew it to go on the Crusades. We blew it for this neocon vision of perpetual revolution. This, my friend, is an extension of Trotskyite communism. I don't know if you know anything about Leon Trotsky, but he was one of the original revolutionaries, along with Lenin, in the
Mhm.
Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. And his philosophy was international in scope. He wanted a perpetual revolution to set up worldwide communism. But if you don't know this, and especially for the Fox News crowd, those commentators that are hawkish in the so-called conservative movement, if you trace back their intellectual roots back to Irving Kristol was a follower of Leon Trotsky. So these are Marxist ideas about perpetual revolution or changing the globe based, and they just switched out communism for democracy. Both are
Mhm.
false. That's just about bloodshed and rule and the god of war. I mean, this is truly demonic. If you really peel back the layers, you're not finding George Washington in this. You know, you're not finding the principles that founded America in this sort of action. You are finding ideological uh, Luciferian energy.
It does. It gets really damn dark. And then that's the same with Iraq and Afghanistan and a lot of these Middle East wars. I mean, even just as a little side tangent, just tiny bit real fast, is like with Hitler and Rommel and the tank divisions and everything and going through, Africa and, like Hitler wasn't just after killing the Jays, he was also in the weird occult shit. He was looking for these Indiana Jones kind of relics and shit. Same as, biblical things. Same as like we find out a lot of these wars, there's a little bit more to each one of them than just, oh, communism evil or they hate our rights or they as the bodies fall, we start finding more like, oh, there's more shit behind the scenes. And I was gonna say, damn it, I lost my train of thought. But on the idea of like Iran, everybody says like, okay, well, we'll take out the bad guy. Okay, well, what then? What's next? So Trump today was saying after the attacks that basically, after America gets done, there's going to be a lot of bombing. Everybody stay in your homes. We're all going to get bombed. But then he goes, but I want the Iranian people to stand up and take their country back. You can do it, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, can that same sentiment be used for Americans at this point? If we're in this Zionist occupied government, like, does that work both fucking ways? Like,
Uh, and
why
what
can't
if
the
you don't like
Iranian
the new
protesters
regime?
get
What if it's
power?
even more hardcore?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
what
it
I
always
mean,
gets worse.
to this unnatural. You know, it's funny because Americans, we like our some of our best leaders, like, we killed them. Like, they're on our money.
Yeah,
Lincoln's on our money. JFK, that was done by Americans. And a power structure, in my opinion. I don't think they're lone nuts that do this, but
yeah.
if Iran wanted to do that to its own, they would do it. You know,
Hmm.
that's kind of the point of the movie Valkyrie. When it talked about the Operation Valkyrie to take out Adolf Hitler, it failed. They did try. The upper echelon of the Third Reich. Um, so they looking at Iran. I mean, same thing with Saddam Hussein. You know how many suicide bombs there were in Iraq before the U.S. invasion in the history of the Saddam regime? Zero. And you
Yeah,
got to
I
think about
imagine.
it. Saddam killed 1 million Iranians, 1 million in the Iran-Iraq war. That, by the way, we backed. I mean, there's that great picture of Donald
Hmm.
Rumsfeld meeting with Saddam. And I thought about that years later, that we had backed them and he killed 1 million, but they didn't send suicide bombers over to blow him up, which is bizarre, right? I mean, he was directly responsible for it, but it was internal. I guess it's Sunni versus Shia, whatever that is. And they didn't do that. And these people that say death to America, from a personal standpoint, people tried to kill me in Iraq, and that's fine. I didn't die. But I would sit down and I would have lunch with those people today. I don't want to
Hmm.
talk to anybody in Washington. But that kind of
Yeah.
tells you where I stand. I wasn't supposed to be there. It's not my land. It's not where I'm
Hmm.
supposed to be. And they didn't attack me. It'd be one thing if it was, hey, we're looking out our off the coast and here comes, this ragtag Navy trying to land on the beaches of the East Coast or something. You
Yeah.
know,
Miami Beach takeover. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that never happens because they can't do it. We flew 40,000 sorties over Iraq over the 10-year occupation, and the occupation, or not the occupation, but the containment, the embargo that we had, the oil for food program, the sanctions. And Madeleine Albright, Secretary of State at the time, went on 60 Minutes, and she was asked, "Is 500,000 Iraqi women and children worth, the cost of these sanctions? Because that's what it's cost, estimated by the UN." And she said, "I think it's worth it." That's the sentiment of the ruling class. These are people. These are human beings. These are children of God. We have gotten so far down the rabbit hole here where they become dehumanized. We did that in the Spanish American War. We'd always done it, but you know, one of the great quotes from William Randolph Hearst. This is before video and stuff, but he told the painter Remington. He was down in Cuba right before the Spanish American War, and Randolph Hearst ran the newspapers. This is who they based Citizen Kane off of. And he said, "You provide the pictures, I'll provide the war." And they made everything like the Spaniards were like these brutish, thing like killing priests and innocent civilians and all this stuff, which I'm sure they did some of that, but to to dehumanize the enemy, you see that in World War II. We did that with the Japanese,
Oh yeah.
and we dropped the atomic bomb on them too, and because when we didn't do that to Germany, they
Yeah.
had, of course, we probably would have in a long enough timeline. Um, but it's just really sad. Like the whole aspect of this, like there's 1,000 different ways to handle this. And why now? I mean, literally, the American people are hurting. We have currency debasement. Our infrastructure is shit. We have a total malaise. Like people don't even know which way is up or down. There's almost no leadership. What does this even mean? Like we're culturally we are really hemorrhaging. And I know that when all else fails, they take you to war. Um, but I guess maybe I shouldn't expect so much. I wanted a little bit better, but I remember when I went on, it was December 4th, 2024, it's just after this election, and I went on Tinfoil Hat,
Hmm.
and I was live in studio, and they asked me, what did I think about the Trump regime, and it just flashed in my mind, and I thought, because what is it going to bring? And I thought, well, there's a story in the history of gold that's interesting to look back on, and it has to do with the first gold coins from Lydia. You had the king, his name was Croesus, and so they had the first gold coinage, and he was amassing gold and wealth and other things, and he wanted to take on Persia. So he sent out this decree uh, to all the seers and psychics and mystics and oracles and everything else. He's like, if you can tell me what I'm doing this evening as I write this, I will shower you with gold, and you can work for me in the court. You be my direct correspondence because look to the future. You wanted a fortune teller. The only one that got it right was the Oracle of Delphi, and the Oracle of Delphi wrote him back and said, "You are cooking a turtle and a rabbit in a stew." And he said, "Oh, wow." So he showers the Oracle of Delphi with gold. And he goes to the Oracle and it says, "What happens if I attack Persia?" And the Oracle says, "If you attack Persia, a great empire will fall." So Croesus loads up his army and all his stuff, and he goes headlong in to invade Persia. and an empire did fall. His. The Oracle
No.
never said, I always love it was like Twilight Zone morality in that, you know? Um, never said which one, just said a great empire will fall. So he took it and ran with it. And he lost his empire. That was my first thoughts on what the second Trump administration was going to look like. And God, I hope I'm wrong. I hope this is overblown. But, you know, you killed the Ayatollah. Nothing, you know, these idiots, like I go back and look at the Cuban Missile Crisis. Kennedy pulls in all the old heads, you know, and Dean Acheson, who used to be the Secretary of State and I think defense under Truman, and you know, old guy, and he brought him in. He brought all the people. Every single one of these old guys was like, you do airstrikes followed by invasion, take the missiles out of Cuba. And Kennedy says, what happens when we kill Russians and kill Cubans and we take these missiles out? He said, what do they do? And the consensus was, well, nothing. Or they'll move on our targets in Berlin, and then we defeat them per our plans. Well, the plans called for the use of nuclear weapons. These people are nuts. Like, what are you actually talking about? And luckily, Kennedy had a mind for negotiation in some level. And I'm not saying that sometimes you just got your back against the wall and you got to fight like hell. I get that. But that wasn't one of those times. And neither is this. Like, it has nothing to do with American security or prosperity or liberty, whatever's left of that, by the way. So
we have a million of our own problems going on at home, and we're worried about, well, they shot some of their protesters, and they say 30,000. Get the hell out of it. There's no way it's 30,000. That's fog of war propaganda. But the irony of being like, well, their government is shooting their protesters. Hey, newsflash, retards, what have we been doing in the past 6 months? We've been shooting our protesters too. And I'm not trying to make a liberal talking point, but you get what I'm saying? Like, it's this rules for thee and not for me kind of horse shit. And you're like, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, the people that brought you Operation Warp Speed also brought you whatever Epstein Fury that we're running right now.
Yeah. Oh, did you say Epstein Fury?
Yeah.
Dude, yes, I know. Basic Command, Little St. James.
Operation Epstein Fury is what we're running.
That's exactly, that's what we're going to call this episode. But man, exactly. It's like, it's all distractions at this point. You know, it makes you feel like Jim Carrey on Dumb and Dumber. You know, we got no food, we got no whatever, no jobs. Our pets' heads are falling off.
Our pets' heads are falling off. Yeah.
Like, this is where we are, and it's like, oh, we're gonna go save everybody and be freedom. And man, I grew up a Republican family and stuff like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I grew up, I got plenty of guns and this and that, dirt bikes and fun shit and tough dude stuff. But it's like the older you get, I'm not a liberal either. I'm never going that direction. I stepped into like libertarian, and then I stepped a little farther out of that because I'm just like, dude, it's all just fake and gay. And then you find out that half of these Democrats are all for attacking Iran because they've had that talking point for 40 years too. So everybody wins except for the American people.
Oh, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. And you can see, you know, we have a foreign government with a lot of sway that's been building for decades, this power structure that AIPAC and the Israeli lobby and all the stuff that they've put into place. And they are exercising that leverage. Maybe the bright spot here is because it's waning. Like, the future does not look good for that side of the ideological spectrum, because people call it out now. Like, it didn't, you know, when I ran for office back in 2013, 2014, you know, 13 plus years ago, no, this was not like you would not find acceptable circles who would even bring this up. And now it's just like my algorithm. People I don't even follow on social media, I can just see, like, it's just, even especially after Charlie Kirk, I think that was a bifurcation point of some kind. Like, we crossed into another realm where people were just like, within 48 hours, it's like, hey, you know, Israel. And I mean, you ever have Netanyahu saying, well, we had nothing to do with that. Well, It's weird
like
that you
three
even
times in
say
one
that,
week.
you know.
Yeah,
it's
yeah. That's like walking
the
in your house and yelling at your wife, "Hey, I didn't cheat on you today. I promise." Like
well,
that's a little suspicious.
it means that the noise at the bottom is clearly making its way, like it's affecting the
Yeah.
it has in metastasized into the larger narrative, which you cannot put the genie back in the bottle. Like this is no longer, we're not going to have the same kind of society that blindly gives into your bullying, and manipulation. I mean, what do you think Epstein really was? I mean, what at the end of the day, what did he represent and what was he doing? And I don't know, just everything about this reeks, and I'm embarrassed for it. Like, yes, there's bad actors in Iran, but there's bad actors everywhere. What are you going to go to China next? I mean, what do you really want? What is this about?
Yeah.
And
Good point.
I mean, China's a mass graveyard. I mean, Nixon and Kissinger flew over in '72 and opened China. I mean, they're talking to Mao. The guy,
Mm-hmm.
the millions and millions dead. They had the Cultural Revolution in the '60s, which was just basically a ritual of
Yeah.
bloodletting, and we just started toasting and opened our markets. So don't give me this morality crap, because that's nothing to do with that. It's about nation states threaten Israel. So that's why in the war with Syria that we were bombing Syrian regular troops and killing them to protect Al Qaeda, our supposed mortal enemy from 9/11,
Mhm.
right? And Hillary Clinton said when she was running, we can bomb Russian aircraft, we can shoot them down to protect Al Qaeda. That's what she said, because we need
Yeah.
to make, because these revolutionaries and the terrorists and the insurgents need to take over Syria. For who? For what? Why? Well, there's a couple of reasons. The CIA has all the rights to the pipelines and the subsidiaries of that. I know that from oil people. And two, a stabilized Syrian government threatens Israel. The same thing with any regime there in the region. That's why you got to take out Iraq. In the early '80s, the Israelis just unilaterally flew over with an F-16 and bombed the nuclear reactor called Osirak that the French and the Iraqi government were putting together for nuclear power in Iraq. I mean, these unilateral moves, like who threatens who, and who's the only nuclear power in the region? It would
Great
be
point, man.
Israel.
Because not only just the region, but just the hypocrisy of like nukes. I know Sam likes to get into like nukes don't exist. I'm not. I don't know. I know I'm on the Johnny side where there's big ass bombs, obviously. So it's kind of irrelevant if nukes do or don't exist. But there's the big dick contest of I've got more nukes than you, blah blah blah. So hear me out. Like America getting to be the guy that says you can't have nukes, Iran, even though multiple other countries have nukes, especially like Israel as well, Russia, blah blah blah. But we're the only people that have dropped some kind of an equivalent. I get it, atomic bomb, but we dropped two of those. Nobody else has ever dropped a nuke, and we get to be the moral purveyor of truth that like nobody else can do it, only us. How dare you? And we all have how many freaking nukes around the world? Like, so it's just a bunch of hypocrisy and lies. But I wanted to ask you this because, okay, the General Wesley C. Clark 7 countries thing. There's one left, and it's Iran. And correct me if I'm wrong. You're the gold and silver guy. Isn't Iran also one of the last, what, 5 countries or so that is not on a Rothschild central banking system?
Yes, that is
And
correct.
then you also have the Jeffrey Epstein files saying that, oh, yes, I do work for the Rothschilds. Like half of these files are like, sorry, boomer retards that are like, they'll wiretap our phones, but they'll never read our emails. So just saying the most blatant, stupid shit. So, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that has part to do with it, like the central banking?
Well, I think it absolutely does. Sphere of influence. There's probably a recipe here. Probably isn't just one factor, but the foreign policy and goals of Israel, a greater Israel project. Did you see? Did you see the interview with Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee?
That was amazing. Like it was so fun. Yes, I watched the whole thing. It was
I mean,
hard to
these
get
people
through,
are like the
but it was
Huckabees of the
good.
world are absolutely delusional. Christian
Mhm.
Zionism has to be, it's like an IQ test.
Mhm.
Like, you really believe that? Like, and especially if you call yourself a Christian, I have,
Yeah, he's
I
like
wonder
a
how many people
pro-lifer,
they've,
but it doesn't matter when it's an alive kid that we blow up. But don't you dare kill your, and I'm not making an argument for abortion, but yeah, don't you dare kill your kid in your womb, liberal. But if this kid's already alive, let's go blow him to hell. Like,
oh, it's
come
just
on, Mike.
complete hypocrisy. And
Yeah,
there's a darkness
yeah.
in it because, can you imagine, just Jesus advocating territorial gain? Well, so Jesus is like to you, he's like Alexander the Great or something. Like we're going to use him as an excuse for territorial gain or for empire or whatever. The whole thread falls apart. When you don't. And what was the board of peace?
Yeah, it's BORED, comma, of peace. We're bored of peace at this
Yeah,
point.
I like
Go
that.
back to war.
Bored of peace. I'm going to use that on my next show. This is bored of peace. This is bored of not having a cataclysmic conflict there. And of course, you got the Strait of Hormuz and oil flow. And I mean, don't be surprised at $5 gasoline here pretty
Even
quick,
though gas
especially when
jumped 30 cents
they
a
lose the
week ago.
supply.
Sorry, I was just, yeah, the gas jumped 36 or 30 cents here in Oklahoma like 3 days ago. I was like, what the fuck? And then 2 days later, we're at war with Iran. I'm like, of course, it's going to keep going up.
Yeah, the intel on this, and people are getting rich off of it. It does make you just pull back a little bit and go, wow, we live in a strange world. We're run by I love the meme that always makes me laugh, and I guess you just got to laugh anymore because if not, you'll have a nervous breakdown. But you look at that meme, and it just has the planet Earth hanging in space, and it has an arrow pointing to it, and it's like you are here paying taxes to pedophiles. You know,
Hmm.
and that's where we are. I don't know. That's how we got. That's where we arrived in the year 2026. So I guess do the best you can. But now these sort of events, you get to see who's real, um, who is really for peace, or who's has a good head on their shoulders, and a big portion of this country does not. But I don't think that the majority certainly doesn't want this at all, and especially when you see the economic consequences that are going to come of it. But I think it's probably a much larger issue of the term blowback. I think we'll see blowback from this, unfortunately. And again, I hope I'm wrong. I don't want it. Obviously not. It will just solidify. After the fact, oh, this is why we did it because they hate us for our freedom. And if they hate us
Yeah,
for our
hey,
freedom, can we be friends now? Because we don't have any left.
yeah, right. Well, and you got the Lindsey Grahams of the world rubbing their nipples today, like, oh my God, but then it's also the irony of like, well, you killed 50 kids in a bomb strike, the first one you reported this morning. And it's like the Republicans once again are screaming like, yeah, we got to go take them out. And you're like, but 2 days ago, I saw you post something about pro-life. And then you just cheered for 50 kids at a school that just got bombed this morning. Like, so, but I also wanted to bring up, with all this going on, like, what are your thoughts on the Epstein stuff? I mean, let's kind of jump into that a little bit because it really does seem like a big distraction with everything going on. Every Bill and Hillary were, getting questioned and stuff. Like, what are your thoughts on this Epstein, man? Because it's not just the kid diddling; it goes a lot deeper. That's
Oh
just the tip
yeah,
of the
and we've
iceberg.
known this. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just more confirmation of stuff that we've been talking about for years. But no, I mean, at the top of the pyramid, David Icke has talked about this, calls it the cult. Like at the very top of the pyramid, it's like they have a different religion, a different faith, a different operating system, different morality. Epstein was a conduit for that. He's not in control of it. It didn't go away, and maybe he's still alive. I mean, would anything surprise you? Like literally, would
right.
anything
Yeah,
surprise you at this point? No, I think it was confirmation, and a lot of normal people were like, you got to watch like the Ben Shapiro's of the world going, there wasn't a list, there wasn't anything, and none of this was inappropriate. that kind of stuff. We got to get back to the real goal, which is sending your kids to die for Israel. And he's breaking all that down. And then a list comes out, everything comes out. He's like, oh well, we should get off of this and move on from Epstein. You get Mark Levin yelling at you. And you can just see what
His
people.
favorite thing. That was a long time ago. Meanwhile, let me keep talking about the Holocaust. But yeah, go ahead.
They love to harp on things that are clearly their hobby horse, which is foreign policy aggression in the Middle East for Israel and that promotion of that. And so that to me has been the great unveiling. There's been a big that's what the term apocalypse means. It just means the lifting of the veil. So we're seeing who people really are. This happened through COVID 1984 really well, but it continues. And look at these pro-Zionist like warmongering outlets that are supposedly conservative, rock rib conservative. They're failing and not doing well. Their numbers are way down. It's conservative, quote unquote, conservative commentators. They're not going to hold up under this. It's been a game up until now, I think, for them. Stir the pot, get the left-right paradigm going.
Yeah, people are waking up, like you said. Go ahead, but yeah, I was just saying, Dan Bongino, his comment section is roasting him alive. People are waking up,
and you gotta love it. You gotta love
Mr.
it.
Tough guy, I'll fight everybody on the internet.
I'm going to take this on, and then he comes back. He's like, "What was everybody talking about?" I think if you want to get a snapshot of, so Orwell says if you want a glimpse of the future, imagine a boot stomping on a human face forever. If you want to get a picture of the present, imagine Kash Patel celebrating with his beer and the hockey team. That's the serious times with unserious men. Mm-hmm. Like I can look, me and you, we probably enjoy a beer. We might enjoy a J together, whatever you do. We might have a smoke or something. But if you put us in charge of that with that gravity, I promise you, we wouldn't be at a hockey game. I promise you, we wouldn't be doing. I wouldn't be flying my girlfriend from Nashville on private, chartered with escorts and stuff, with private security and with funded by the government. I wouldn't. I would be. That's such a solemn thing, like you're talking about the gravity of children as human capital moving between bloodthirsty cult to cult, used as currency. It's one of the God. You have to answer to God for that someday. You literally have a cult. Not only that, but there's the amount of corruption. So if you had that position, so it just clearly shows he's a fraud, right? And you don't get to the Bonginos of the world. Sorry, you don't get to have your cake and eat it too. You either are or you aren't real. And I can imagine that was a really stressful thing, but be honest about it. If you're like, I can't even maneuver here, I have no power, and they're so corrupt, I'm out. But instead,
and the people would trust that. They would believe that because we know that, selected, not elected, or whatever euphemism you want to use. But you get in there, it's like, it's a big club and you ain't in it, or all the above. You can come back and go like, man, guys, I can't say much, but this was crazy that my hands were tied on every single thing. That's why I stepped down. There's nothing I could do. I mean, without sounding like a victim, but proving the point that there's this shadow government somewhere way, 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 way above you. So, if Bongino would have came back saying something like that, guys, I tried and I got railroaded, it would be
that's
a little
when
more.
You have to make a choice. You don't get to go back to doing what you did. I think at that point, if you can't make a change, I think you respectfully tell people as much as you can tell them, and then you walk away. And that's when maybe you do some kind of change. You take a hiatus, start working on some memoirs, gather, after this next regime, you relaunch yourself later. But the way that it was done, it's just so, people, they want their clicks and their popularity and everything else. It's just disgusting. And, we
Bring
don't.
back bring back shame, dude. He needs to do a walk of shame. That's what it really is. Like you walked away, and if you're gonna come back trying to be this Mr. Tough guy, we need to shame you. And I hate to sound shitty about it, but it's like you had a position after you talked so much crap on the internet. You get in there, and then you're just like, all right, guys. So, anyways, let's forget about that. Back to me being a tough guy on the internet. And you're like, come on, man. But then you have a great point, like you said. It kind of made me think of like Marjorie Taylor Greene. She bowed out because she admitted I can't do a damn thing in here. Like this is, like we're getting hit. Like she was a little more honest. What are your thoughts on her?
A little bit, yeah. I think, well, she did something smart. She waited until her congressional pension would be activated after the first of the
Well,
year,
there's that too.
and
Yeah.
I've had, why do you blame her? She probably worked really hard. It takes, I ran for Congress. I know how much money it takes and effort and time. And I mean, good for her at that point. But yeah, there's no winning. You look at Thomas Massey, the guy, the guy's just getting hammered, from every direction. And yeah, he's got a small base of support.
I love Massey.
But yeah, Massey's great. And it's sad that we don't come to his rescue, and I hope he can win the primary, but he's going to get, I mean, they're probably pouring 10 to maybe 100 times the amount of money that normally goes into a congressional race to get him out. You're
Maybe
gonna,
amazing.
yeah, it'll be, yes, it will be a storm. Like he'll have to weather under the scrutiny of that primary. They'll do everything within their power to at least make him lose the primary, right? Which is coming up for him, I'm sure, probably in a few days.
Yeah.
So we'll know in a few days if he lost the nomination, and if he goes out, his reputation will be intact. Losing is not the worst thing that can happen to him. The worst thing would be to sell out and just make the compromises. I mean, you have to live with that. One of the great uh, stories about Spartan mothers, of the warrior class in Sparta, they would tell their sons, you either come back with your shield or on it. Like you either fight or you come back on that shield, like drug back. Like, there's no fleeing. You come back. One of the stories was one of the younger Spartans running back to his homeland, and the mother lifted up her skirt and says, "Are you trying to come back from which you came?" Like he's trying to go back to the womb.
Yeah.
It's shaming. Because it's a warrior culture, and that's a hard life. And I think I did everything I could as a younger man to try to join the warrior class, and I try every day to stay in it as best that I can. It's a tough deal, and sometimes you don't win. Sometimes you just have to take the L. But that's, I think at the end of that's what integrity is about, and what kind of legacy you want to leave. There's worse things than death, and there's worse things than than losing. It's loss of identity, and loss of what makes you valuable. I think as a man, or it could be a woman too, but I think especially in the realm of being a protector and everything. It's why all this stuff, when I see men making decisions that will ultimately lead to the destruction and death of innocent people, you got to wonder who who they really are. Like what sort of, are they void of compassion or empathy? Do they not know, the full cost of their decisions? And if they do, is that evil? At the end of the day, I mean, sometimes war requires a lot of bloodshed. And when you fight, you got to fight to win, which means you fight dirty if you have to. You got to do whatever it takes. But at the end of the day, like, that's on your hands. That blood's on your hands. It's on your soul. And I would caution anybody who's knee jerking to support this, that, you're attached to this karmically if you think this is a good thing.
Mhm. There's a lot of weirdness to the idea of war because, I mean, at the end of the day, half of my family on both sides, mother and father side and everything, are all veterans. So I'm not just some guy just shitting on the military or whatever. I, Guys like you and every other veteran I've had on this show, I have the utmost respect for you guys. And almost every damn one of you guys come back and tell me something that they all find out that propaganda was a heavy hand and half the reason why they got in the military. Because you get over there and then you find out a lot of the times, like the same old adage, this isn't what I signed up for, and so you find out that, like, okay, there needs to be willing people that are tough soldier types that are willing to go fight for what's right. But what we're told is what's right, and manipulating these young tough guy young minds is fucked up because it's these asshole puppeteers at the top, playing with your emotions. So what I'm getting at is, like, are wars okay? Sometimes, but they have to be justified. Like, they have to really be like, the irony of, like, what even the founding fathers said, that, like, America is such a great place because we have oceans on both sides, and it gives us a strategic advantage to where, like, we're not so easily to be bombarded and invaded like Eastern Europe or places like that and shit. So the idea that, like, we have to go fight everybody's war or go start everybody's war, it's just kind of idiotic, But like I said, dude, anybody that's a military soldier, like, I've got the utmost respect for. I'll buy you a beer, shake your hand, and all the above. But yeah, we find out that it's not what we're told every damn time. And I don't know, like, back to Massey, he had a great point a couple months ago. I mean, has plenty of great points, but when he said that Donald Trump is going to be gone in a couple of years, and the rest of you guys will go down for the rest of your legacy and career as defending pedophiles because you want to kiss Donald Trump's ass right now. And it goes to show these people are just right here in the moment. They don't think of the long term. They don't think of blowback like Ron Paul. Sorry, I'm ranting. One last thing. I want to ask your opinion on this. What are your thoughts on hypocrisy of the right bitching about immigration and we need more ICE, and ICE is a separate subject. But the idea of where do a lot of these immigrants come from? There's more Iranian and Iraqi and Afghani immigrants and Somali immigrants and all these people. Where did they come from? Us blowing up their fucking countries. So that, I
Absolutely.
mean, isn't it a full circle irony?
Well, I think you might be giving them too much credit that they actually think. They probably don't. They read talking points from think tanks that do their thinking for them. And a lot of those think tanks are actually devoid of depth. They have an agenda. This has been the most massive, successful psychological operation in human history that's gone on in the last many decades here in this country, where the left-right paradigm gives you the same result. And the emotion that people show on both sides, and it leads to nowhere. Like, if you can spot a partisan now, like, you can go on your social media and you can see who's like, oh, the Ian Omar is bad, but Republicans are good. It's like, well, how? Show me, and because in Texas, where they've been running on border security since I was a little boy. I got a gray
Mm-hmm.
beard, so maybe you didn't do a good job. That's what we call failure. Like, you failed. You were given power over and over and over and over and over again, but you decided to sell out for that. It's too hard, or the Chamber of Commerce wants their cheap labor. The housewives for the conservative GOP folks, they want their cheap illegal alien maid. The Democrats want their voters. The power structure wants their chaos. But everybody loses that's a normal, regular person that just, you and I wouldn't cook this stuff up. Like, if I was the leader of the free world right now, I'd be thinking, how do we create economic alliances? How do we make it to where people in the developing world can become entrepreneurs and creative? How do we get clean water? How do we lower the price of good organic foods? Things like that. How do we get access to libraries and other things that are not
You're
censored?
starting to sound like Gaddafi. Don't
Yeah,
say
right.
that. No.
I'm gonna
Okay.
get. Hopefully, I don't die with a knife up my ass. But
Oh shit.
that's you get Gaddafi. But that's what I'm saying. Like that's what a rational, decent leader would be thinking. Like, how
Leader
do I
would
make
do.
because this is the war is the what is von Clausewitz? War is an extension of politics by other means. And now it's
Mm-hmm.
reversed, and politics is an extension of war by other means.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
And
we
then
are
that
we are
warning of
down the
the
rabbit hole, brother.
was it Truman or was it Eisenhower that was warned into the military-industrial
Yeah, it was his
complex?
farewell speech, 1961.
Mm-hmm.
Eisenhower, the beware the military-industrial complex, and he knew a thing or two about that, and
Mm-hmm.
he realized that it was how dangerous it was, and he was really warning Kennedy that Kennedy didn't give him their war fast enough. He didn't give Israel their nukes fast enough. He didn't want that. He was livid about that. Didn't want nuclear proliferation, and he pissed off about every category you can piss off up there. And good on him, because for all his faults, and he had a strange personal life. You should read some of the essays by Gore Vidal, who was his friend and actually sort of related to him. That
Really?
spent time with him. Gore Vidal wrote some. I can't repeat it on air, but he did some really stuff on interesting stuff on Kennedy. But I still have so much respect for him because he did stand up to that, and he didn't drag us into some cataclysm, which he could have. He could have by weakness
Mm-hmm.
done, and we're somebody else is driving this, and you got to think like we have Donald Trump who's in his what is he, almost 80 now? It's almost 80 years
79.
old.
I think he'll be 80 this year or next year. So yeah,
Yeah,
I think he's 79 currently.
yeah,
But
sad.
meanwhile, Joe Biden at 80 years, I'm not defending Joe Biden. He's an old retard as well. But it's also like, hey, can we start putting some like age restrictions on this shit? Because everybody, okay, I get it. My conspiracy brain goes to, okay, so we had Trump, which in a way, I'll tell you this, the 2015, 2016 Trump coming into office is one of the best and worst things that ever happened because every normie on the planet that never paid attention to boring ass old politics and whatever, George H.W. Bush, boring as hell, like nobody listened to politics. But then Trump comes in and it made people notice. But then once they noticed, people noticed, then they just brought the antics on crazier and crazier, whether it was the attacks on Trump, whether justified or unjustified. Point is, then they bring, oh, we got to get rid of Trump because he's just chaos. He's a bull in a china shop. We bring in the retard potato, Joe Biden, for 4 years. So everybody sees the chaos of those 4 years and goes, fuck, we got to get Trump back. But then it's almost like this big WWE kayfabe play of everything to where Trump's back in. We got 20 years ago propaganda again. War is good. No wars. I mean, go look at his old posts about Obama bombing Iran or wanting to bomb Iran to save his poll numbers and shit. And you're like, dude, the internet doesn't forget. My point is we're kind of coming close to an end here. Like, we're just repeating the same governmental cycles over and over. And it seems like it doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican. Since JFK got shot, we are living in a Zionist occupied government. It seems like it is becoming glaringly obvious, and Toto on The Wizard of Oz is pulling that curtain back and showing the little midget that looks like the big tough guy.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good analogy. I said that on America Unplugged today, not about Toto, but about the Zog. And I mean, give me another example of this ever happening where the American people are like, were we attacked? What's going on? What are we doing? and we're doing full scale joint operations and killing the supreme leader of another supposedly sovereign country that did not attack us, by the way. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in Iraq, they had operations after we invaded because we were running things against the Shia. They had, direct help from the Iranians for operations on insurgency. Sure, we're like in their backyard. We would do the
Mm-hmm.
same if a foreign government took over Mexico. We would be trying to expel them from our. And I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that's what you want to talk about, how politics works, how foreign policy works. That is what they were doing. And I mean, so they wouldn't have done that again. If you don't give them a target, they don't do it. And the whole fallacy here is that if we don't do something, they get a nuke and they'll become the first suicide bomber nation. They'll just launch it on Israel and then that'll be it. Well, they
Mm-hmm.
could do that now. They don't even, they could literally become a suicide nation if they didn't do it. Like they could have just launched a full scale invasion, took the nukes, but they would have wiped out, Israel. So, I mean, it's stupid to think that through and go, oh yeah, well, if we don't stop them, we can't stop them from getting this 80-year-old technology that Pakistan has, by the way.
Yeah,
Pakistan's
no
got the
shit.
bomb, you know. India's got the bomb. Really. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, are we doing this? Are we gonna? And so in 1964, the Mao Zedong got the bomb, and
Mm-hmm.
and that
They
was
all do.
why we didn't go and invade China. I find the whole argument is ridiculous, and I just pray to God I'm wrong on whatever the consequences will be. But I don't think anything good will come out of it.
You seen that meme came out like last year during the 12-day war when they eliminated all their stuff, even though we're what 9 months later and oh they're close again. Anyways, where it's the meme it says basically shit, what was it? Oh yeah, well we gotta take out Iran because they're about to have a nuke. Well, why don't we go take out Russia? Because they currently have nukes. What are you crazy? They have nukes. It's like the idea of like, what are we doing here? So big bombs are stupid. They're retarded. We get it. Like it's big dick energy. Donald Trump's the best, But I love my Republican friends. At least I get along with them a lot more than half of the liberal retards in the world. But man, Tony, this is great, dude. I want to do this again sometime. Obviously, like I said, we had this scheduled today, and I texted you this morning of like, well, I guess we got some other talking points to get into, but
You
yeah,
don't
dude,
have to
I'd
worry about that. We're in the Great Reset decade. We're gonna get plenty of talking points delivered daily, probably.
yep, psyops on psyops, brother. Well, hey, dude, remind everybody where they can find you and what you do is Wise Wolf Gold and Silver, correct?
Yep, Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. We have the Wolf Pack Gold monthly subscription program for all things precious metals. You can just take $1 amount, and we will customize an invoice for you. Try to get you as close to that metal price as possible. No BS. Give you some variety and things. Turn that fiat into real money. Wise Wolf Gold, Silver, Bitcoin, and you can find that wisewolf.gold or wolfpack.gold. Both of them are my brands, and my website is just go to tony.gold. It'll take you to my website, and you can find my podcast there and links to me and anything related to that. I got a great new ParaTruther out, my podcast ParaTruther, which is kind of old school. It's audio only.
Mm-hmm.
Really focus on just the podcast channel itself. So if you go to find ParaTruther, you get the Arterburn radio transmission, which is like live once a week, and we do parapolitics and precious metals, kind of an overview. And then we do ParaTruther. I was a paratrooper in the Army, so it's ParaTruther. And we do deep dives into interesting things, like hidden history. I just did one on Rudolf Hess, who was the second in command of the Nazi regime. And most people don't know this. Like this was like Hitler's best friend who was in prison with him when he wrote Mein Kampf. And the guy flew a plane and landed it in Scotland in 1941, trying to negotiate peace. And they locked him up and called him a crazy man. And I'll just give you a little bit of how crazy, the wonderful deep dive that we did, but just an interesting piece of forgotten history. They built a prison for 600 people. And guess how many people occupied that prison? Just one. His name was Rudolf Hess. And he died in 1987, guarded by 4 different Allied powers. What do you think Rudolf Hess knew? Because the whole premise of World War II was it's the good war. And, we got to, Hitler's going to take over the world and all this stuff. And why was the second in command, the deputy Fuhrer? Why was he flying a plane alone into Scotland trying to meet with royalty to negotiate a peace if they had those designs? I mean, it's kind of a why. And why did he die at 93 years old by quote unquote suicide in a prison built for 600 people, and he was the only person there?
That's interesting. History is fun when you want to look into it. Other than your freaking Robert Maxwell funded fucking McGraw Hill textbooks, of course.
Yeah, you won't find
just
what we covered in ParaTruther in any regular textbook.
Right. Us Goyim aren't supposed to know these things. But
yeah, get back, know your place. Know your place.
Know your place. Go get your shekels. Dude, Tony, this is awesome, man. Stitt-Heads, guys, I'll have all of his show notes or links in the show notes. I always say that backwards. Why do I always do that? But anyways, yeah, dude, Tony, this was awesome, man. And I'd actually like to talk to you off recording for just a second about Wise Wolf Gold and Silver.
Sure.
But guys, yeah, don't forget, like, subscribe, comment, all the good shit, and have some fun. And like Ron Burgundy, put the ass in classy. That's my thing with Talking Stitt. So peace out. I'll see you next time. Love you guys. Oh shit! How do I hit recording in? Boom. There we go. All right.